Well, Chief, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. First of all, before you became a police officer, we know that you were actually an attorney. That was such a significant career shift. Can you share with us what motivated you to make that transition, and how does your legal background influence the way that you do police work?
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the greater Chinese community. And actually, I was a police officer first. So after college, I went to the academy, but my mother did not like it. I'm the only child, and she thought it was dangerous. Of course, all mothers do. So I went to law school, became an attorney, but I've always wanted to be a police officer. So after 3 years of being an attorney and hating myself every day for not doing what I want, I told her I'm gonna give this up and go back to policing, which is what I want to do with my life. And that's the short version of it. But life is too short not to do what you believe in, and waking up every day not being happy with what you're doing with your life.
Now, let's talk about some pressing issues. I want to ask you, how does crime evolve in your jurisdictions just, in the last few years?
The crime, Compton is a working class neighborhood. So the experience is going to be, of course, different across other cities, which some, you got the rich cities, you got the middle class cities, you got suburbs, you got, there's a great variation. But the trends in Compton reflect the statewide and also national trends that, like for example, during COVID, when everyone was on lockdown, the increase across all areas is domestic violence, because people stayed at home. And so you have a lot more disputes, a lot more just people seeing each other all day that they didn't used to. So we saw a lot of that, and plus robberies went down because people didn't have money. A lot of people stayed home. People weren't out to be robbed. But on the flip side, because people were home all day, car thefts went up because all the cars were home. So people just started breaking into cars and stealing cars right out of the driveways. So that's common trends across that we see. But then as COVID opened up in the last few years, people came back out, and then the street fights and the robberies and all the street crime went right back up, because now all of a sudden people came back out and the opportunities are there again for the criminals to act up. So the uptick is not just to Compton, but we see this statewide, nationwide, pretty much, because people are the same pretty much everywhere. It doesn't matter, criminals are criminals. So violent crime went up, and even seasonal. Like for summer, you get more street occurrence, the violent crimes, because people are out more. In winter, people stay in more, so you have less robberies, of course. And people in the summer, they get mad, it's hot, they get into fistfights more. So you see these kind of trends all the time. It's pretty constant. But the uptick, smash and grabs, people walking into retail places, just taking stuff out. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows CVS, Walmart, that kind of stuff. They walk in, grab a whole bag, and walk out. That's on the increase everywhere, and Compton's not immune to that. We have that here as well. And as well as like burglaries, people smashing windows at night when stores are closed and just breaking in and ripping off cash registers or whatever they can get from inside the store. And that's on the uptick. A lot of that is also, not localized here. So you see a lot of that statewide has been going up since 2020 for the last 4 years, steadily increasing every year, these kind of property crimes. And while violent crimes has also climbed, but not at the same rate as property crimes. Like for example, San Francisco. San Francisco's about 800,000 people. LA city, 4 million people. They're 5 times smaller. But in the 6th month of this year, San Francisco alone, like 2,300 cars got stolen in 6 months. That's almost 400 a month. That's a lot. More than 10 cars a day being stolen out there. That's crazy. I mean, not 10 days. My math is bad, sorry. That's why I'm not an engineer.
Well, considering the you know, just the complexities of crime. How do you ensure your department remains agile, just, you know, in adapting new challenges regardless of, you know, political landscape?
So politics being what it is, and one of the first things they told me when I became a cop 20-some years, you know, long time ago, we do our job. We are a service industry, and it doesn't matter about politics or whatever, whoever, you do your same job. We're apolitical. Police departments are apolitical entities. So whether you are Democrat, Republican, libertarian, religious, not religious, it doesn't matter to us. So we have to maneuver and know what we're operating in as far as the environment, but we have to do the same thing no matter what. It doesn't change what we do, as long as we are aware of the environment. So we have to be sensitive, of course, to the community, but it doesn't change how we do our job, because we can't treat people differently. If we say, oh, because of this kind of policy or political environment or this social group or whatever, no, we're not going to do this. We can't do that because that's not fair to the community. Everyone, like right now, everyone says, you know, everyone's equal under the law, and that's how police departments have to operate, and while being sensitive to the needs of the department. So if there's different needs based on the strategy, like there's two strategies I'll explain. There's problem-oriented policing, and there's community-oriented policing. I'm sure those terms people have heard of. So problem-oriented policing is one strategy where, for example, if you have an intersection and everyone's always running it and there's a lot of accidents, you put a police car there, or you put more patrols there, or you put stop signs, or, you know, target that place, reduce the crime or problems at that area. Same thing as like a commercial area. A lot of burglaries happen there, or a lot of robberies. You put a police car there. You send your detectives to follow up on which criminal organization is targeting people there. So you go after the problem and solve that problem. And that's one strategy that departments operate on: targeted enforcement, problem-oriented policing, whatever you want to call it. But the other part, proactive policing, is preventing the problem. So you go out, community-oriented policing, you talk to the community, you build a relationship, you let the people know, you let your neighborhood know, you let your business owners know, I'm the officer responsible for this area. You got any problems, you call me. Or you got any issues, you tell me ahead of time. You see some homeless start camping and causing problems, potential fires, because unfortunately when it's cold, homeless people often have to light fires in the trash cans or whatever, and then sometimes the buildings burn, and that's a problem we have to address. So you let me know if that's a problem, then we'll find the resources, move them to a shelter, give them, you know, referrals for services so they don't have to light trash fires and burn down your building, because we had a couple of buildings in Compton that got burned down because of that. So these are things that you build a relationship with the community. They tell you whatever they see, and then you can prevent problems from happening, so you don't have to go after the problem later on. Because I'd rather prevent the problem and then have to go after and solve it afterwards. But then there's less, what do you call it? Less glamour when you prevent the problem, because people don't know what happened. So people are like, oh, there's no crime, we don't need the cops. No, we prevented it, but you don't know. I can't give you a statistic on preventions. I can just tell you crime went down compared to the year before. So that's the two strategies that we use, and that's used by police departments, not just in this country. It's pretty much global. A lot of countries use the same models, because there's only really, you know, criminals are criminals, police are police. We do the same job no matter what country we're in, and we address it the same way. But the laws may be different, environment may be different, policies, political parties may be different, but the job is the same, which is why cops can be friends across internationally.
You know, we know both President Biden and former President Trump have made statements about crime rates and reduction strategies. Now, how do these statements really resonate with law enforcement professionals like yourself?
Broad statements and such, you know, it's great to know what the national stance is and what the federal level, what they say. But the most important thing is on the federal level, there's a lot of grants and a lot of programs that they make available to help local law enforcement, which is really the part that makes an impact. So for example, under Bill Clinton, even as far as in the 90s, Bill Clinton started the COPS program, which gave grants for police departments, local departments to hire police officers, gave us money to increase staffing. Because at the end of the day, the more cops you have, the more we can do, and the more prevention we can do, because you see more cops on the street. So that started the COPS program, which a lot of departments used to hire more officers when they couldn't hire on their own budget. And there's also NIJ, National Institute of Justice. They have the Bulletproof Vest program, so they help pay for our bulletproof vests from the federal level, which helps a lot. Like, because each bulletproof vest is about $1,000 to $1,500 per person, and it's every 5 years we got to buy one. So in a department, just say, for example, LAPD, 10,000 cops. That's $1,500 per cop at 10,000 cops. That's what, 15 million? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money. Even for like a small department, if you got 10 cops, that's $15,000. And a small department doesn't have the budget usually that, you know, to pay for 15,000. Or if they do, then it's got to come out of somewhere else. Cars, radios, equipment, vests, stationery, napkins, coffee, you know, we have a set budget that we can spend on everything. So when you take 15,000 out for bulletproof vests, it comes out of somewhere else. So that program really helps a lot, and it's available every year. And we've applied for it and gotten it. So it really helped me buy better bulletproof vests for my officers as well. Mm-hmm. And there's so many other programs, partnerships. One great partnership in the last 10 years was called Violent Crime Prevention Partnership out of the federal level. U.S. Marshals, FBI, ATF, DEA, even the prosecutors, U.S. Attorney's Office, local DA, probation. They put us all together. And we all work together to address the problems in the cities that we are in. So Compton was one of the cities that was selected for that partnership, and I was on the team. So a lot of good things came out of that because they gave us resources and access to FBI, ATF, DEA directly. Whereas before, we can call them, but we didn't have the relationship. So it's a little different when you work with someone directly and you are on the same team, talking about the same problem. So for example, like one of the cases, and we arrested a known gang member carrying a pistol, and he was on his way to shoot somebody. And because we had the partnership at state and federal, local level, we were able to talk to the federal agents and then also the local district attorney plus the U.S. Attorney's Office, and talk about what's the best way to go prevent, you know, to put a good case on the offender. And so what we did was the DA says under state law, maybe this guy will get 2 years, 3 years. But then the federal prosecutor said he's going to get 10 years with us because the laws are different, federal and state. So we talked to the federal agents and then the DA's office and coordinated that. So we filed the case in federal court instead of state court. And we're able to successfully prosecute and put away a person who was on his way to murdering somebody for 10 years instead of 2 years. And so that was a good thing, that example of something that came out of a good federal partnership, that they backed us up and gave us more options to protect the community.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought up police funding. So there's been a debate between reallocating resources to community programs versus traditional law enforcement. How do you navigate that balance?
Like I said before, prevention is always a good thing. I am all for prevention, but unfortunately, you can't go too far one way or the other. And if you put everything in prevention, but you have nothing on enforcement, because you can't prevent 100% of it, crime. You just can't. It's reality. And when something bad happens and you swing too far on one way, about a month ago, I think it was LA schools. There was a shooting at one of the LA school campuses, and they did not have an officer nearby because of some of the policies and politics, which I won't get into because I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to misrepresent them. But the civilians they had on site and were the resource for addressing problems could not handle it because they were not equipped or trained to handle that kind of a situation where someone had a gun and was shooting on campus. So in the end, the officers still had to come, but they had to come from off campus instead of being on campus traditionally where officers would be on a campus. So the situation was resolved, thankfully, but in an emergency situation, you don't have time to waste. You don't want to have like some of the proposals which, for example, use social workers or use civilians to do traffic stops and talk to people, or have social workers go to a call like a mentally disturbed person or domestic violence. And that's great. I understand why, but you need an officer available or with you, because if situations go violent and go bad, someone's going to get hurt. It's probably going to be the civilian that can't handle that kind of response. So I'm all for prevention, but you have to understand there is a need and there's a reason why we're here. We're not all here to arrest everybody. We don't want to arrest everybody, but on the other hand, we have to protect people as well, because you send a social worker to contact someone on a call. You think, oh, it's not a violent call. There's no danger. It's a call that can be handled by civilians talking. I go, okay, that's fine, until it doesn't. Until the other person decides to be violent, until the person you think is just a regular person is actually maybe on drugs or something that you didn't notice before, and then he turns violent on you. There's reasons why we carry all our tools too, so we can handle the situations. So there's actually something that a lot of people don't know about. We call it MET, which is, mental evaluation, where there's a team. County has a team, and some local police departments put together those kind of teams. LAPD has one. I think Huntington Park, Pasadena. I mean, they on mental crisis calls, homeless calls, emotionally disturbed persons calls, they send a social worker or a clinical psychologist or a trained civilian in that kind of field along with the police officer, and they respond together. So the officer's always available if something bad happens, but then they let the civilian handle it on that end to talk to the person and maybe resolve the situation without police intervention. But the officer is available because they're together as a team. So that's a good model. But again, it takes money and resources if you're going to roll out, 2 people all the time like that to those kind of calls. So not every place can pay for that kind of a team to be available. And the county has one for those areas that don't have their own teams, and the county can respond, but they're swamped. So sometimes they are not available. So yeah, I totally agree with that, but you just got to understand to balance it. And if you're going to make that resource available, instead of cutting the police, you're going to find a way to have a civilian with the police so everyone can be safe at the same time. Last thing I need is more hurt civilians trying to do things that they think they can do instead of us. And that's great if they can, but if they can't, I don't want them to be hurt.
Now, the recent U.S. presidential election has brought attention to broader issues like livelihoods and the nation's future. Now, how do these factors intersect with law enforcement's priorities?
As far as the economy? Well, crime comes from, many different reasons, a lot of theories, a lot of political studies, a lot of college level thesis, postdoctorate, a lot of theories on crime. Economics is one big driver. Poverty is one big driver of crime. Lots of different reasons, but yeah, when you are poor or when you don't see opportunities for yourself to get a job or do better for yourself, or if you get influenced by other people saying, hey, look how much money I made selling drugs, how much money I made just walking into a store and stealing stuff, and no one's going to stop you. Or, hey, I can rob these people easily and they're not going to fight back, certain demographics, whatever. I mean, speaking bluntly, Asian crime. Asians have been targeted because, the perception, unfortunately, is that Asians, we wear expensive watches, jewelry, we got cash at home, we don't call the police. So when people think, it's easy to make money that way, yeah, the economy is definitely going to drive that, because less jobs, less opportunities, easier targets, all that, yeah, crime definitely is going to go up. So the president or whatever policymakers want to talk about improving the economy, it's definitely going to help address crime on that level, because if you're making good money, having a good job and all that, you're not going to go out and commit a crime and steal and then go to jail and lose your job and lose your house and all that when you have something available to you. You got to give people opportunity.
Can you give us some examples of specific policies or directives from different presidential administrations that actually have had a tangible impact on law enforcement's strategies in your jurisdiction?
On the federal level? Well, on the federal level, like I said, a lot of the federal level policies, it comes down in the form of the grants and partnership that I spoke about earlier. Those are the things that's tangible on the local level, because America's system is very, the way the American people are and the way our nation came about is we don't trust federal governments, and we don't want the federal government telling state and local people what to do. Which is why, compared to, say, China or Japan or France or South America, other countries, they got one national police, one police department for the whole country. America, that's the reason why there's so many police departments. Like in LA County alone, there's 88 police departments in one county, and we have 58 counties in the state, plus the state police, plus the state attorneys, plus all the DAs and district attorneys. So on the federal level, they really can't tell us what to do, because we have state courts and state laws and state jurisdiction, plus our local ordinances. And on the federal part, they got federal laws and federal FBI and all of them that do the federal part. So as far as the federal level telling us what to do, they really don't tell us what to do. They can give us support, give us money, give us partnership, give us resources, help us if we need help in investigations. Like, I'm sure everyone watches movies. You have a bank robbery, FBI comes right in. Oh, FBI, we're gonna take over, because FBI handles bank robberies. Or if we have a complex gun smuggling, or we track a stolen gun off, we take a stolen gun, we call the ATF because they have a national database for stolen guns, whereas we might not have that locally. So we work together that way with partnerships. That really helps us. Secret Service for counterfeit money. Whenever we get an arrest and we take money off the suspect and then we find out it's counterfeit, we call the Secret Service because they come and they take it and then they trace and find out who's making that fake money. So these are the things that we work together with. That's always been in place. And as far as the policies, they can talk about policies all they want, but tendentially it's the money and the partnerships that make a difference on the local level.
Now, with the upcoming presidential election, I'm going to ask you straight about this. Who do you believe should be elected as the next president, just, considering the implications of law enforcement and public safety?
That's A tough question because, as I said, police departments are apolitical entities, and me being in uniform, I don't endorse or address one candidate versus the other. As a private citizen, I can do and say whatever I want, but officially, my position is who should be the candidate or who should be our next president is, as you said earlier, who can help the economy improve, because when the economy improves, crime really does go down and society improves and we can do more proactive things. Just like money, our time and our officer staffing is limited. So if we're out there fighting crime and chasing people all day, we don't have time to do proactive stuff, like building relationships with the community or doing programs to educate the kids or drug prevention, outreach. So as far as the policies go, I mean, I just want to see a president that's gonna unify the country, because our country right now, I think, is too divided, and I'm afraid that doesn't matter who wins, there's gonna be, whoever loses, that side's not gonna be happy, and I'm just afraid that we are divided to the point where the losing side, I don't want to see more riots, because the riots have been getting worse and worse every time we have riots. I mean, when even back to 2000, when George Bush Jr. Won the election, or there were riots. Not as bad, but they already had riots because he won over Al Gore. Then, you know, when Obama won, there was some minor disturbances. When Trump won the first time, oh, there were riots. People were rioting at his inauguration. And so, and then George Floyd, of course, we saw what happened with those kind of riots. And a lot of people lost their lives and billions of dollars in damage over those riots. Shut down cities, shut down federal and state government offices. So that's my fear, is that whoever can unify us, whoever can say we must come together, doesn't matter what party, doesn't matter who you think I am, I represent everybody. Not just the ones who voted for me, not just the ones in my party. So we don't go through more disturbances, because unrest brings more crime afterwards. Because we saw George Floyd lasted not just a summer, it lasted for well over a year. And some cities like Portland, Seattle, 3-4 months straight of rioting. No city can stand that. And how do people work or live or survive? Normal people. You can't live in a city like that when you know every day you walk out, you might get hurt or killed or something because people are rioting over unrest. So that's my only thing, is I don't care who wins. I just want someone that can bring unification and peace and address the whole nation as one people.
Now, have there been any incidents where conflicting priorities between federal and local policies that have actually posed challenges for your department? And how did you navigate that?
Well, very easy example on that is legalization of marijuana. State, Colorado, California, I mean, there's a handful of states legalizing it, but the federal government did not legalize it. And that was a question for ever since it started. Now the federal government's looking to legalize it or change the scheduling to make it, you know, not controlled, but there was a lot of conflict. Like, we have dispensaries, now it's legal for the state, we can't enforce it now, but the DEA can still come in and arrest people who are selling marijuana legally for the state, but not for us. And even though it's legal in the state to sell marijuana, they got all this money, but banks, because banks are under federal law, they can't take the money to the bank. So then now you got a warehouse with millions of dollars in cash sitting there because they can't put it in a bank. And then they get robbed. So then it becomes a local problem because it's a robbery locally, but it's because of a federal law or conflicting law that's creating the situation. So that's, I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges for local and federal jurisdictions to work through. I mean, not that we don't agree with it, but it's the law. We don't make law, we don't make policy, we enforce the law. So if the state says, hey, it's legal, and we say, okay, it's legal. But, you know, it's still causing a problem for us because now you're having all these places where people know there's millions of dollars in cash. Millions, literally. You go to a warehouse, I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but Long Beach, San Pedro, a lot of places with warehouses. Those dispensaries rent the warehouses and have security guards standing out there with shotguns because you look inside, cash from the floor all the way to the ceiling, just all cash because they can't take it to the bank. And then those places, of course, you get robberies, you get, unfortunately, sometimes you got, I think it was a deputy, sheriff's deputy, who tried to rip it off. He went in there and tried to take the cash. But it just creates these kind of opportunities for crime. Or even the dispensary. Before they can make the deposits, people just go in and rob the dispensary of their cash. So it's just different conflicting policies and regulations and laws which create hotspots for more crime to happen. I hope that kind of answers that. Or another way that, say, something conflicts, not marijuana. You know what? I forgot. There was another situation where federal and local. Oh, immigration. Say immigration. That's another hot issue right now. Back in the day, immigration, there was a federal section, 927G, if I recall. It's been a while. But when local police arrest somebody or contact somebody and we find out that they are illegal, we detain them and then we put them in the jail and we put a immigration hold. And we call, back then we call ICE, well, it wasn't ICE before, it was just INS. And the INS agents will actually come and pick up all the illegals that we detained in the jail and put an immigration hold on. And that's federal law or federal policy back then. And then eventually when the political landscape changed, it became like sanctuary cities or states that passed a law saying we're not going to cooperate with the federal authorities. And then eventually when the federal government came around, they also said, okay, the policy is still on the books, 927G or whatever it's called, I forget, but they said we're not going to enforce that section either now. But you see the fight in Texas, because Texas is saying, no, we're going to fully comply with that, and we're going to turn over, or if the federal government now, because they don't take them now because of the new president saying we're not going to ask the locals to turn over illegals to us in jails, we're going to do it ourselves. And before the federal change, I mean, we had local police departments that were told by their councils. Our city council passed a policy that our police department will not comply with the federal government even if they request for immigration holds. And that was in between the last couple of years before the federal government changed their stance and not come after local immigration holds. So when the police department arrested a legal person back then, during those middle years, they could not put the immigration hold even though it was available to them. So that was another area where police operated in between the conflicting federal and local laws. And so now everything's changed and swung the other way. So the federal government doesn't go after that. The state pretty much don't do that. We don't do that here because my thing is I don't enforce federal law anyways. I'll cooperate with the federal government, of course. We're all working together. So if they need our cooperation, when they ask for help, I'll definitely give it to them. But if they're not going to ask for it, I'm not going to do it either. So I'm not, And that was one of the issues, which gets into another issue now about the population trusting the police. You're going to have to let them know. I don't care if you're illegally in America. It doesn't matter to me. If you're a victim, I'll help you. And I'm not going to report you to INS. That's not my priority. My priority is protecting you. So we have to build that relationship. So I understand why there's both sides on why the local police do or do not do that kind of thing. Because you don't want the population to be afraid of you if you have a high percentage of illegal population in your jurisdiction. So you want them to trust you. And I've had to tell the people I've contacted before, I said, don't worry about it. I'm not here to worry about your immigration status. I'm not going to report you to INS. I need you to just tell me what happened so I can protect you. And the district attorney is not going to care. We're going to do whatever we can for you because your immigration status is not my concern. I'm not INS. I'm a police officer. My only concern is your safety. And so that's another area where, you know, there's a little conflict and some explaining and trust building you have to do, because unless I'm arresting you and put you in jail, I can't put an immigration hold on you. So if you're not a criminal, don't worry. I'm not going to care. You're a victim, I'm going to protect you. Doesn't affect me any. Now, if you're a criminal, that's different. I'm going to do whatever I can to put you in jail or keep you away from the public.
Mm-hmm. Well, very well. Thank you so much, Chief, for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate your time and expertise.
您正在收看的是凤凰卫视。